And we're live now on Polygon Issuance number 66 on the 17th of July, 2015. This is Jeff Wilcox, the host, and the only person you're going to see on the show because there's no guest and nothing is happening. Well, there's a lot of stuff happening, but with regards to the current weather right now, hopefully my air conditioner is not coming through on the sound because it's really loud, but it's very hot. It's very humid. Heat indices well over 100. Dew points in the mid to upper 70s. Temperatures are in the 80s and lower 90s. It's pretty much July in Iowa right now. But yesterday was possibly the weirdest weather we've ever had. And I'm going through because I got to bring this up because some of this that happened yesterday was just completely weird. Yesterday we had severe weather in Iowa and into Illinois. As many of you know, there was quite a number of tornadoes in western Illinois yesterday. Cameron, Illinois. A lot of people talked about that town. A tornado hit that town. And there was a lot of people that said, oh, the town was flattened, and it wasn't. It was damaged. There was a lot of damage, moderate damage. It was an EF2 tornado. It was specified or rated today as an EF2. But what I'm going to show you, and I'm going to bring it up because I got to find it first, is we're going to go through some of these things because some of the storms we had yesterday were just plain a bit odd. First off, and I'm going to screen share this. This was the first tornado warning of the day, and I'm screen sharing this to you right now. Hopefully it's coming up. Yes, it is. This was a tornado warning in Story County. I am not kidding. This was a tornado warning. And as you can see here, this is a shower. However, this little shower did produce a fairly picturesque funnel cloud. Supposedly, it may have briefly touched the ground near Kelly, which you can see it's kind of blocked by the polygon. Right here, supposedly there was a brief touchdown here or just west of here near the Story-Boone County line. So a lot of people that saw this funnel cloud because, as you can see here, is the city of Ames. That's Iowa State University, home of the cyclones. Cyclones means tornadoes. So evidently, tornadoes seemingly are always near Ames in this case. But there was a lot of pictures of them, which I'm not going to show because there was a kerfuffle about videos and pictures from yesterday. But I saw this, and there was a lot of people on Twitter that said, what? Why did they issue a tornado warning for this? Because what they didn't realize was there was a funnel cloud that was almost to the ground, so they had no choice. Now this was past the peak of the cell. The cell was a bit stronger beforehand. It formed from what it looked like it happened. There was a boundary in this area. The storm came up, and it formed a little meso-low about right here, and a little tornado or a funnel cloud formed. And as the storm moved away, it dissipated and died. Well, that was the first tornado of the day. Then this was the second tornado warning. This was down by Burlington. And this is the storm that would go on to produce the tornadoes near Gladstone. You see here there was a tornado there. Kirkwood had two tornadoes. This the one tornado at Kirkwood went up to near Monmouth, which is just off the screen. And then there was another tornado at Cameron, which is east of Monmouth, between Monmouth and Galesburg, Illinois. This is the storm that produced it. And you can see here, it looks a lot better than that one. This one produced possibly a brief tornado, whereas this one produced four tornadoes. The Quad Cities, this is the Quad Cities CWA, they found 6 tornadoes. 4 of them were from this thunderstorm right here. Now, one of them was from this thunderstorm. This one was further to the north. This one went through Henry and into Louisa County, and then it went off into Illinois. And that one was near Swedesburg in Iowa. That went just south of Swedesburg. That's between Mount Pleasant and Ainsworth. If you're going down the Avenue of the Saints south of Iowa City, it would be just on the other side of the Henry County line. When you're on the Washington-Henry County line, you come to the city of Swedesburg. Or Olds is first, then Swedesburg, and it was just south of there and west of there where that tornado was. But it was from this thunderstorm. You could kind of see the hook on this. So the first thing you're thinking, and I thought this too, this looks very atypical for July, that we're having a lot of these cells that were just forming. And when I saw that there was, whoops, go back, we have this storm producing a tornado warning, I'm thinking, anything looking like this could produce a tornado? Now, I might make a mention, thinking about it. Here is the tornado. This is the storm that went on to produce the tornado at Swedesburg. You can see here Swedesburg right here, because I remembered I'd kept this. And you can see a TVS on it. That's pretty much about where the tornado was. It actually formed near Trenton, east of there, and it went to about right here. And you can kind of see, this little appendage sticking out right here. So they confirmed a tornado there. But this storm right here went on to produce this tornado. This was I believe the Gladstone tornado. You can see here, there's the inflow, outflow. There's this little knob sticking out, but it was there. And it continued to move. Kirkwood had 2 tornadoes. One was the tornado that a lot of people saw pictures of a fairly good-sized cone tornado, was located between Kirkwood and Monmouth. And then the Cameron tornado was very hard to see. It was multi-vortex. And we had there was a lot of chasers on it, and a lot of people saw it. And we won't get into the kerfuffle, but there was a big kerfuffle going on about video and permission and a lot of other stuff. So we're not going to get into that, but there was a lot of that going on yesterday. But whoops. Now I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. Whoops, we don't want to show that. But anyway, so let me bring up. So you're gonna see a bunch of stuff now. So this is gonna look really weird. So here is the damage survey they did from the Weather Service in the Quad Cities. You can see they confirmed 6 tornadoes at the point. We had this one with Swedesburg was an EF0. It's only on the ground for about 2 miles. Then this is Port Byron. Now, first off, your Port Byron is across the Mississippi River from LeClaire. For those that would know what LeClaire, that would be like, why do we care about LeClaire? If people have ever watched I can't remember the show thing, but if you remember Antique Archaeology, you know, those people, Antique Archaeology is their main base is in LeClaire, Iowa. Across the Mississippi River from LeClaire is Port Byron, and that would be this tornado. It formed pretty much just on to the Illinois side of the river, and I've seen pictures of this tornado too. And this one pretty much touched down and was on the ground for quite a while, about a mile, but it was on the ground for about 10 minutes. We moved fairly slowly and moved to the north and east. Now then, here we have the Cameron tornado. I'm trying to make sure that this is okay. Then we have the Cameron tornado. Now this is not the next one, because actually in fact the Cameron tornado touched down not long after the Port Byron tornado had lifted. Now these are totally in separate places. Port Byron is in the Quad Cities. Cameron is a good 50, 60 miles south of there. But this tornado was an EF2. It was on the ground only for 8 miles, and it pretty much started from what is considered this tornado, tornado number 5. Tornado number 5 was on the ground. It lifted just southwest of Monmouth, and that went on to then produce tornado number 3. It's out of order. Bear with the Weather Service. They're trying to put these in some semblance. They put them in, I think, they put them in alphabetical order to a certain extent. So as tornado number 5 in this case lifted, tornado number 3 touched down further to the east. More or less of a case where one system gets choked off and occluded, and a new circulation forms and produces another tornado. So this was, and from the people that were there, it was a cyclic supercell, which is, and we're thinking this is July. We don't get stuff like this in July in Iowa. It does happen, but not that often. So, or even in Illinois too. This was into Illinois, but it just seemed rather interesting that there was a lot of reports, and there, as you can see, there were quite a few tornadoes. Luckily, there was no, from what I see here, no injuries, no injuries, no injuries, no injuries, no injuries, and no injuries. So you have 6 tornadoes here. Nobody died. Nobody was injured. So, and the damage was fairly minor to moderate. From what I was seeing from the reports that I'd seen yesterday, there were people that actually were standing outside in some of these areas. For example, one of our chasers that we have a cooperation with was in Cameron, Illinois before the tornado hit, and they because there was 2 of them, saw people standing outside going to look for the tornado. At that point, Cameron tornado was rain wrapped. You could not see it very well, if at all. And that is incredibly dangerous. I don't understand. It boggles my mind as to why people were doing that. But as you can see here, I'll bring this up. Here was the severe weather reports in the area. There was the storm right here. Port Byron's tornado was up here, and that moved up here. You had this was Swedesburg. You had the tornado here, pretty much in this area, Henderson and Warren County. And luckily, the storm kind of merged into a HP QLCS, pretty much a rain mass. Although it did produce there was a few more tornado warnings further to the southeast in Fulton and southern Peoria County, but it was a lot weaker, and it was pretty well used up a lot of its energy. And by the time it got into Fulton and Peoria counties, the sun had set. The storms kept going for a while. In fact, the storms went well to the south and east for quite a while. I think they got all the way down past Lincoln, Illinois, almost north of the area around north of Decatur, Illinois, as from what I can remember. But that's the severe weather that occurred at least in southeast Iowa. Now, if you look at this, and I'm going to point at this, here's a few little thunderstorms up here. Now, all the action's down here. Tornadoes, lots of activity. Then you look at this little line right here that came into northern Iowa. That little line went on to produce another tornado. This one was in Mitchell County near Osage, which is about right here. It was just south of Osage. It was a small little tornado there. So, I mean, remember we had earlier that little tiny shower produced possibly a brief tornado. There was a report of it, but a big, long, skinny little funnel cloud. We have these supercell structure type systems producing tornadoes, some of them quite large, and some of them moderately doing some moderate type damage. And then you have a small cell, bigger than the shower from the first cell, but smaller than this cell, and this one went on to produce a tornado. So in hindsight, the severe weather we had yesterday, we had a possible tornado, or at least a funnel cloud from a shower. We had a tornado from a fairly small cell, and we had multiple tornadoes from a big complex of storms. So we had pretty much about everything yesterday, and this was only in a few places. Southeast Iowa, pretty much around Ames, and up here near Osage. That was it. That is called widely scattered. There's a lot of people, when you hear the word scattered, it's scattered like this all over. But widely scattered is here, here, and here. At this point, that cell in Ames had already died out. But, I mean, there was and I'm still, and of course, right now, I'm looking at my Twitter feed, and there's a lot of tornado warnings going on right now. But there's a lot of, it seems like this is the severe weather season that's not really wanting to go away at this point. But we're getting a lot of dry air. Whoops, we don't want to do that. That wasn't good. But anyway, if anybody who might be watching right now or maybe later wants to ask me a question about anything, well, not anything, but weather-related anything, you can just send me a tweet to my Twitter account at IOWX. That's IOWAWX on Twitter, and I can answer that at this point while I bring up the severe weather stuff, because it seems like we're getting into a rash of severe weather. There's severe weather ongoing in the plains again tonight. There's a severe weather risk tomorrow. There's severe weather again on Sunday in the Ohio River Valley, the Middle Mississippi River Valley. It is summer in the Midwest and the Plain States. It just seems like with this type of weather pattern, and with the temperature so high, the humidity so high, because the evaporation of a lot of the moisture, because in Iowa and in the Midwest, we grow corn and we grow soybeans. And a lot of that moisture from that, which is transpiration, I think it's that, the air is just more humid here. That's why we see dew points at this time of the year, especially when the corn is 6, 7, 8, 9 feet high, like it is in many farm fields right now. You'll get dew points here, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, like we had on Monday, where I saw, at least here or close to here, I had a dew point of 81 and a temperature of 89, and the heat index was 106, and the temperature was only 89. Now today, it was 90 or 91. Dew point was about 76 or 77, and the heat index was about the same, about 105. And in this weather, everything you just sweat almost immediately as you leave the house. When I went and bought pop yesterday, after I was finally able to get out of the house, I left the store. I'm not going to say which store, but you can pretty much guess. And within about 30 seconds, the bottled pop, started sweating because it was so humid that everything sweats. Everything is sweating. And it's a fascinating process to watch it, but not to be out in it. It's very, very difficult to be out in this weather when it's this hot and this humid. But let me bring up I'm going to bring up the radar. So, and while I do that, oh, whoops, there's the radar. So I'm going to bring up my Gibson Ridge radar. And let's see what I'm going to see here. So we have, in fact, I'm going to go up to that. So just bear with me, because I'm going to go up to, where is this? It is right here. Okay. I think it's running. Yeah. Okay, so this is where it looks like there's quite a bit of severe weather. So I'm going to bring this up. This is the Weather Service radar, the Doppler radar Aberdeen. You see there's a lot of thunderstorms in the area. Let me zoom in so we can get cities on here. See, there's a tornado warning here. There's a tornado warning here near Siston, which is that town that's you cannot see because the polygons are pretty much obliterating the town because you can barely see that. But you see there's all these outflow boundaries and whatnot. And that's the thing. There are so many outflow boundaries in the summertime around here that they move off, and then the next day, where in our case here in Iowa where I'm at, we're going to have severe weather tomorrow. And it's not just going to be from storms blowing up in the afternoon and afternoon heating, because we're pretty much capped off right now where warm air is pretty much keeping a lid on cloud development. You'll get clouds, but they're not going to develop very far because the warmer air will do that. It'll just keep them from building up until it finally breaks out, and then you'll get storms exploding. But you have to have a fairly good forcing to break a fairly strong cap, and most of the time strong caps will not break. And when they do, they will break explosively. In some cases, they'll break violently that you could go from having a nice sunny day to immediately having a severe thunderstorm in 10 or 20 minutes. For example, and this happened here on Monday, the day we had the temperatures in the 80s and low 90s and dew points in the lower 80s. There was a severe weather risk in the eastern part of the state that day. Big risk. Everybody's going enhanced risk, or I think we even had a moderate risk in Illinois. Yeah, in fact we did. We had a moderate risk in Illinois. And everybody, and they issue watches and all this stuff. Well, they did after the fact. In Iowa, 2 thunderstorms formed. 2. Both of them within 5 miles of where I live. And it was interesting to note, and I could bring that up because I believe I kept the radar for that. If I didn't, I'm going to be mad. So, but I saw this, and I will have to look for it. So, but I saw, yeah, I didn't save it. Darn for me. But I saw the 2 storms, and I took pictures, and I do have those, so I'm going to bring those up. So, yes, thank you. Why it keeps beeping at me. But anyway, so let me screen share that. I don't want to screen share that anymore. I want to screen share this. Okay, here is one of the storms. As you can see here, you can see the nice bubbling thunderstorms. What typically happens, now these storms were these storms were already precipitating. It was already raining. They weren't severe. They wouldn't be, these storms didn't go severe for at least about another hour. This was looking, I believe, south. This was the southern one. Now look how nice and sunny it is. Look at the trees. It's sunny. It's a wonderful day. Here's a thunderstorm. I was taking this picture. It was actually thundering at my house, at the apartment building I live in. But it wasn't thundering from this storm. It was thundering from the storm that you don't see, that's actually behind me, that you can't see, which I took a picture of later, and I'm going to bring that up. This was the storm behind me, and you can see this was almost direct. It wasn't directly overhead. It was several miles. It was still a couple miles to the north. You can see it was fairly dark to the north, and yeah, this is the one. This is looking northwest, and you can see the storm is off in the center and right. You can see this bubbling cloud straight up. But if you notice, there's nothing else to the left. Nothing. It was only this storm here and this storm, and that was it. It was these two storms, this one and this one, that the Storm Prediction Center issued a tornado watch for where I live eastward because of this storm and that one. Because these storms developed and they issued a tornado watch. This is what happens when a cap breaks explosively. The southern storm developed south of me and it didn't rain here. This northern one did rain here. It rained for about 5 minutes. It rained probably 20 minutes after this picture was taken. It rained for about 5 minutes. It dumped about 1/10 of an inch of rain, but it poured. So it might have rained more than that, but that's what my rain gauge said. But you can see these storms exploded the cap because there was a cap in the atmosphere. When you get storms exploding, they'll go straight up. But if you look, say, over here to the left, you see these clouds right here. They're not popping up. It might be for the fact this storm is taking all the energy, or the cap was still in place even here. And the storms can only go so far and then they drop off. Well, this storm finally did it, along with that storm. And that's what happens when you get a cap. Now, I took video of this cloud right here, this part of the cloud, and you could see this cloud just bubbling straight up. And it's so fascinating. Of course, my video expertise with this camera is not that great because I'm taking this with a pretty type camera that's only, and I took video with a digital camera, so it's not that great, but so I'm not going to show that. But these are the pictures that I took of that storm. And I mean, between this one that looked like, I looked at this when I looked at it, and you'd think it was going straight up, which is kind of like an optical illusion. It was kind of in a circular pattern. I wish I had taken a picture looking north because you could see the gray skies, but you could see straight through and see blue sky on the other side of the storm, which was very interesting. It was so odd to see that, but I didn't keep the picture picture of that. But I believe, and I'm going to bring back the radar back to Aberdeen. As you can see, there's quite a few tornado warnings, but storms like that, that's when the cap breaks. Now, if you notice here, this is Webster, South Dakota. You see this boundary, this outflow boundary. Look how this outflow boundary goes up into this thunderstorm. And it comes, here's the outflow boundary. You see it right here, and it comes up right to there. Now, if I was to do the relative velocity, my guess is the tornado is probably somewhere in here. It doesn't look very well organized. But there's the outflow boundary right here. It's a little curlicue. And you always have to watch them, especially in the summertime. You're not going to get this big cold air dumping from the northwest anymore. Not this time of the year. Most tornadoes this time of the year are pretty much boundary related. You have to have boundaries to be able to get just the little tiny little shear you're going to get. It's not going to be the case of where you get storms in the spring, April, May, where you have like temperatures in the 40s and temperatures in the 70s and 80s. And I think a lot of people would be happy to see temperatures in at least the 50s and 60s right now, but they may have to wait at least until maybe September. But that's our type of thunderstorms in the summer, boundaries. And every thunderstorm, I've seen numerous storms today. It doesn't matter where they are. If they're in the south, the plains, the Midwest, New England, many storms have outflow boundaries, especially this time of the year, especially when you get storms collapsing. They just rush all this wind out, and you'll see outflow boundaries going away from even some collapsing thunderstorms. Well, these outflow boundaries just meander, and they go wherever. And typically, wherever they set up, even if they're so subtle you can't see them, if a storm develops fairly close to a boundary, you could get a little spin-up tornado. And that's what happened likely yesterday in Ames with that little shower, there was a boundary there. And that storm, little tiny cell, formed on the boundary, and it produced a funnel cloud. Now, as you can see here with the radar, this tornado warning just went purple. In fact, it's a new one. So there is a tornado on the ground somewhere up here. So it's looking quite active up there in northeastern South Dakota. But this is pretty much a lot of thunderstorms up here in the eastern Dakotas moving into Minnesota. So it is their tornado season up in the northern plains. At least through the month of July is tornado season up there. So we'll but otherwise, not much else is going on at this point. Ooh, excuse me. I could mention I'm seeing feeds showing wall clouds, stuff like that, but not a whole heck of a lot else is going on outside of heat, humidity, severe weather. And I'm trying to think what else I was gonna. I could mention the kerfuffle, but I'm not gonna do that. But anyway, with I lost my train of thought. This is what happens when I'm doing the show by myself. If anybody wants to go and watch it, the last time I did an episode by myself, go to Polygon number 2, which is my book brigade show that I did when I brought out all my weather books. That was not a good show. That was disastrous. So this could be just as disastrous. But anyway, but with the type of weather, it's just going to be, oh, now I know what I wanted to talk about. I was chatting earlier to this evening with, and I'm wondering why stuff's coming up here. Okay. I was chatting earlier with Mike Cox. This would be Tennessee Mike, who's been on this show before and has co-hosted with me a few times. He typically on Friday nights, most Friday nights, is producing the Cincinnati Reds for the radio station he works at in Bristol, Tennessee. He tweeted just before the show started that there was a thunderstorm approaching, I believe, where they're playing. I think they're playing in Cincinnati. I'd have to go and look, but I'm not sure if that's where they are or not. In fact, I'm going to go and look it up now. But he's because there was a larky remark. Oh, so I guess they're still playing, and he said, "Yep, that's what they're doing." And this brings up a point of a couple of things I've seen where baseball teams have been playing baseball games with thunder and lightning visible at the stadium and or at the ballpark, thinking, what the heck? And I think that is dangerous as all heck about that. So I don't like that idea that people are just are being real risky. But let me look up to make sure that if Cincinnati if the Reds were actually playing at home or not. But anyway, I mean, that's just ridiculous that stuff like that is happening. And still, you would think after all the issues we've had over the years, where you had the SEC basketball tournament several years ago in Atlanta and a tornado hit there, that at least was nobody got hurt, at least that was playing or at the tournament. But I just don't know. I'm still trying to find out. Okay, Cincinnati and Cleveland. So I'm assuming they're playing. They're not playing now. They did finally did suspend the game. Probably because somebody got hit by lightning. But anyway. So the game is being played, I believe. They're not going to tell me where it is. It is in Cincinnati. So anyway, so that's what's going on there. But it's just Why do they keep doing that? I don't know. But at least they stopped the game. At least maybe they're smart. They may have stopped the game long before I even mentioned it, and maybe even a few minutes after I spoke with Mike about it. But it's ridiculous for stuff like that to happen. And we've seen it with the Chicago Bears several years ago, where there was a tornado even on the ground, but it was still many miles away from the stadium, and it was still not even quite into the suburbs yet. It was in the far, far southwest suburbs. And they did almost nothing for a long time, and that was ridiculously stupid. We've had numerous times at races where they don't do anything with thunderstorms, where you had that one person killed by lightning at Pocono a couple years ago. Sporting events, there needs to be like some responsibility when it comes to weather. And I honestly think people are going to have to, and this is the case for about anything, people honestly have to probably get killed for anything to get done. And that's the same thing with looking at, say, tornado warnings, that they used to be so bad and awful that people had to get killed for something to actually be done about it. And they're finally getting it where they're getting the social scientists in and putting in all this stuff and getting it there. But that's not going to stop people from doing what they did yesterday in Illinois. Tornado warning, there's a tornado on the ground. What do? They go outside and look for it. That's not going to save anybody anything. I don't care what social sciences do. You're not going to get those people to go to the basement. They're going to want to see it. They want to see it for themselves. You can have 50 helicopters and 40 live shots and whatnot. They're still going to want to see it with their own eyes right in front of them, not on a TV screen, not on a computer, not on your iPad or iPhone or Android phone. They're going to see it with their own eyes in front of them in their world. They don't want to see it on some device, although that'd be nice. But honestly, from what happened yesterday, from the report that I've seen, is the likelihood is that part of Illinois is very rural, is not very well developed, because it's a lot of small towns. And the state, and here's where I'm going to probably get myself into a slight bit of trouble. It's pretty much a part of the state that the state of Illinois pretty much disregards as part of their state, because they don't care about those people. Anybody that lives pretty much south of the Quad Cities and west of Peoria and north of, say, Alton, Illinois, and west of 55 at that point, that area of the state of Illinois has pretty much been disregarded by the people in Springfield for many years. So if they had the same type of internet stuff in those smaller towns, people would get better internet. They could see it for themselves on their, if they had better cell coverage and all this stuff, they would see it for themselves on video, internet, all this stuff, and they would go to the basement. And you could have live streams and all this stuff. But a lot of places, especially in these rural areas, you're not going to be able to say, good on our live stream on so-and-so.com and you can watch us. Yeah, if you have good cell service. I mean, there's even parts of Iowa that have terrible cell service. How are you supposed to get on to so-and-so.com? It's not like it's like, oh, my house is going to get hit by a tornado, but my internet is going to stay on. Yeah, right. Your internet will probably be long gone before the tornado even gets there. And who knows how good the cell service is going to be. And I could get back to June 30th last year. I've mentioned this so many times, people are sick of it. June 30th, big storm comes, blows everything away. Well, it didn't. It blew a lot of trees down. I had no phone service. I had no internet. I had no television. I had no cell service, no phone service, no cable, no internet. So and I didn't for about a day and a half. If there had been another storm come, say, the next day, July 1st, and it had been a tornado, I wouldn't have known about it because I had no cell service. So even if I had a smartphone, which I do not have a smartphone, I wouldn't have been able to get anything. I wouldn't have been able to go to soandso.com to see a live stream of their coverage because I wouldn't have seen it anyway. And I couldn't watch it on so-and-so's channel because I couldn't watch television because television is broken. And there's no TV. And I couldn't go onto soandso.com and watch it. And I couldn't go onto the web or onto a smartphone and watch it either. And I think that's the problem with a lot of rural areas, especially that part of Illinois. There are a lot of small towns. The cell service is typically not very good. And I probably, if anybody wants to comment about that, send a tweet to Iowa WX, and I'll probably read your disgusting complaints. If you want to send me nasty talk about that. But I think it's partially true that a lot of smaller towns don't have the best cell service, don't have the best internet. So why do you keep telling people to go to soandso.com and get it on your smartphone and watch it on your iPad and all this other stuff? I mean, not everybody can go to soandso.com and watch it. I mean, you have to have pretty good internet to do that, and you're not going to get it on dial-up. And yes, there are still people that use dial-up. And you're not going to be able to stream video on dial-up. And even in some cases with broadband, even on the lower ends of broadband, you're still not going to be able to stream video that well. Now, for example, the broadband that I have is pretty decent. It's not terrible. I can stream video, but sometimes some TV stations use a video type system that is so bad it just buffers every like 10 minutes. I won't mention who, but there's several stations that I've watched some streams that this has happened. If I can't get it to work on an internet that's based in a house with Wi-Fi, which I use for this laptop, which I have here, or even on the desktop, if I can't get it on there, who's to say you're going to be able to get it on a cell phone or a cell phone through some app or on a smartphone or an iPad? If your internet doesn't work, how are you going to trust your cell service to work? I mean, I don't know if it was the internet being bitchy or if it was, and I just said it, pretty much I got in trouble for that. But I've had this happen a lot of times with these streams that they just do not work well in certain situations. And this has even happened on our site with our stuff, where we've had some of our streams being kind of a bit helter-skelter sometimes. That's not a fault of ours. It's just sometimes you just can't get this stuff. So there's my 2 cents, and that probably has gotten me in trouble. So I probably have lost all my upcoming guests. And speaking of other stuff outside of that, I saw a bunch of tweets go by about a fire in Southern California. What else is new? A fire in California, where there was a fire called the North Fire. Evidently, they haven't named it something better yet. It's only 500 acres. Supposedly, it jumped Interstate 15 at the Cajon Pass. Now, first off, you're thinking it jumped in interstate. First off, jumped Interstate 15 at the Cajon Pass. For those that wouldn't know what that is, Interstate 15 is the interstate that connects Los Angeles with Las Vegas. The Cajon Pass is just north, is the pass that goes between the valley and out into the desert, into the Mojave Desert toward Barstow. And the fire jumped the interstate. It jumped onto cars and started burning cars. Whether there were people in these cars, I don't know. I've not seen anything about that, but that just seems very scary as to of fires and whatnot. Now, when I've been in Southern California twice, I have seen a fire. I've seen where a fire was. I've not seen it in person, but I have seen it with my in the distance. Back in 09, I don't remember what the fire was called. It was called some fire. It was way off in the hills, north of Los Angeles, well up in the hills. And I could see the smoke from it. And even the day that we went out to Catalina Island, which is a good 30 miles off the coast, you could still see it, even though the smoke was blowing out, because the wind was blowing in toward the coast and away from the coast out into the mountains. So the wind was blowing from southwest to northeast. That's the only time I've ever seen a wildfire, even from a distance, in real life, was in 2009 in Southern California. So these fires mean business out there with the drought they've been having out there. A lot of the lakes and reservoirs are running almost dry, if not already have gone dry. The only hope is El Nino is with El Nino supposedly strengthening this now into the rest of the year, that they'll be able to get some rainfall out there. The sad thing that I fear is probably going to happen is they may get rain and they may get too much. And then that's going to do them no good, because the ground is pretty much hard packed now. You get a big storm and it dumps a lot of rain, everybody will go, yay for California, they got rain. Californians would be like, boo, rain, because all it's going to do is wash straight into the rivers and flood places. And you're going to go from having a drought to having a major flood. And what's going to happen when the rainy season ends? Everything's going to dry back up and you've gained nothing. And we could go right back into another drought. I mean, you need nice, gentle rains, like maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch that soaks in, not these downpours that I fear are going to come to California this winter. You can hope, because they really need the rain there. But these downpours are going to do them no good. Downpours will do nothing, nobody any good out there. Because they do not want heavy rain. That's going to mean everything's going to start flooding, and that'll make the situation way worse. So we can hope for that out there. Regarding around here, given that the dew points are near 80, I think we're doing pretty well okay with moisture this year. We've not had, nobody's really too dry. Nobody's, it may be a tad too wet in some areas, but not by a lot. Corn is growing, soybeans are growing. Everything seems to be in good shape with regards to that. So we'll see what happens coming up the rest of this summer and into the fall. I don't really see much of anything happening. I don't see any big complete pattern change as far as I know. We still may get some warm spells like today, some cooler spells, some rain. I mean, I don't know. It's just pretty blasé when it comes to the weather, at least lately, outside of the severe weather yesterday. And possibly the severe weather we may get tomorrow, which would be on the 18th of July for those that may be watching later. So we'll have to wait and see about what happens with the rest of the year. I'm just hoping it's not going to be a horrifically cold winter, but I'd rather see a lot of snow. Well, not a whole lot, but some snow to get a nice, good snowpack for farmers. Than the snow we had this past winter, where it snowed, then it all melted, then it snowed, then it all melted, and it did that three times before we finally had snow that stuck for a while. And even when that happened, it wasn't enough, and luckily it rained. So. But I don't have much of anything else right now, because I've been going about 48 minutes and whatnot. So I could look at my Twitter right now to see if anybody has sent me anything at this point. And I see, I don't see anything at this point. But With regards to what's coming up next week, we do have a guest next week, so you can be happy to note that we do have a guest next week, so I'm not going to have to do this again, at least for a while. But Scott Sistek is going to be on next week. That, I think, is going to be a very late show, if I remember right. I'm going to have to make sure I send him a message about that. I believe that show is going to be on at 9 o'clock my time, which would be 10 o'clock Eastern, because he is at Como 4. That's in Seattle. And so that's probably when that's going to be. I think at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, 7 Pacific. That's at this point. That could change. If it does, I'll put it on my Twitter account. After that, Travis Meyer, the Travis guy from KOTV in Tulsa will be on, discussing the weather in Tulsa, especially the tornadoes they had in March and all the rain they had in Oklahoma and all the severe weather they seemingly have been having all spring and all summer lately. So we're going to talk to him about that. And he's been in the Tulsa TV market for so long. I think he's been in the market longer than I've been alive. I don't think that's true, but we'll just say that because we'll make him look good. After that, there's nobody else at this point. So if anybody wants to send me guest suggestions, I've emailed numerous people over the last several months. So if you suggest somebody that I've already emailed and I never got a response from, I'll mention it. So you can send those suggestions to me on my email. That's iowawx@gmail.com. That's the letter G, mail.com. You can send them to me over Twitter at iowawx. That's IOWAWX. You can find the Polygon, the older Polygon episodes. Those are on my YouTube feed. I probably should do a link to that one of these days, to the feed. I'm going to have to add the several episodes that I've neglected to put onto that feed lately of past shows, all the way back to at least episode 3, because episode 1 and 2 I do not put on my feed because they are horrendously bad programs. Unless you want to look for them, those programs are on YouTube at episode 1 and episode 2, and they are terrible. But episode 3, where we had James Spann on, that was back last March of last year. That was episode 3, so you can go back from there on. There's a few episodes that are missing because they were on a separate YouTube channel. But other than that, if you want to email me, besides for guest suggestions, this is what happens when I'm talking and I'm losing my mouth. My mouth's going dry. If you hate this show, like this show, or if you like the show so much you want to be a co-host, because I'm always looking for people that would want to be on, maybe even to co-host for one episode or not, so that you can send that to me in my email or Twitter account. So at this point, we'll wrap this up. So next week, we're going to have Scott Sistek on, at least at this point. Who knows when it's going to be? I think it's going to be at night sometime. So and I forgot before I leave, I forgot my shout out. So I'm running out of gas here, and I want to stop soon so I can drink something, because I need to drink something so I can get my mouth moistened back up. But anyway, I'm going to shout out our guest for next week, which is Scott, and he does his weather blog for Como 4. You can find that on their website, which I can't right off the bat find, but let me look for it while I do that. No, not that. But yeah, he does his weather blog, and it's interesting. If you go to their website, Como News, I think it's well, wait a minute. Let me make sure it's this. ComoNews.com. You go to their website, The website is complete, and all that stuff is completely done by our guest, because that is actually his main job, is the website work for comonews.com. He also, but he is a degreed meteorologist. So the first thing you'd ask is, what? Because he's not on air either, we might add. He's not an on-air personality. He only does the weather blog and all the other stuff. So that's what's interesting about him. So we're gonna have him on, and I'm still looking for his weather blog, which I can't find right now. So I'm gonna keep watching or looking for it. Whoops, that's not good. But right now, I'm still looking for it, and this website is. But anyway, for myself, whoops, and everything keeps falling apart on me. But anyway, you'd be able to find it somewhere, but it's there somewhere. But anyway, for myself, have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay dry, stay cool, and